Welcome to episode 389, where I'm answering questions from the Elements of Ayurveda podcast community. And I cover topics on hair thinning and hair loss. And I also cover the 20 Gunas or qualities of Ayurveda. These are the 10 pairs of opposites used in Ayurvedic healing. So please stay tuned. Hi there, I'm your host Colette, and on this podcast I will be sharing the teachings of Ayurveda, yoga, and holistic health practices. Now, if you're new to Ayurveda, I recommend checking out the first couple of episodes where I do an introduction to Ayurveda and the mind-body types. Thanks for listening, and now here's a new episode. Hey there, and welcome back to the Elements of Ayurveda podcast. Today, I'm answering questions from the Elements of Ayurveda podcast community. And Courtney was asking in the community about hair thinning and hair loss. And I have talked about hair loss before, but I wanted to discuss it in a little more detail in this episode, as many clients have similar concerns. So thank you, Courtney, first of all, for this question and inspiring this topic on this Q&A episode. And there are many factors we need to look at in order to determine the root of the issue when it comes to hair thinning and hair loss. The first one being, we need to look at the functioning of our Agni, our digestive fire, because poor digestive function can result in a lack of nourishment of the tissues of the body. Now, I talk in detail in episode 93, which is titled Nutrition of the Dhatus, about the process from eating our food to the breakdown of this food and the nutrition through all the 7 tissues of the body. And I quote this episode all the time, I know, but it's a really important episode. So if you're not familiar with that, please check it out. But in the case of the issue with hair thinning and hair loss, we need to look at the bone tissue or Ashti Dhatu, because hair is the Upadhatu or the byproduct of our bone tissue. And so the health and nourishment of our bone tissue directly influences the strength and quality of our hair. And if we look at that sequence of nutrition of the dhatus, Ashti Dhatu, our bone tissue, is formed from Meda Dhatu, our fat tissue. And if the bone tissue is not adequately nourished by the fat tissue, then this can result in weakness or depletion in the bone tissue. And that, as a result, will lead to weakness and depletion in the byproduct of bone tissue, which, as I mentioned, is our hair, and it can cause hair thinning, brittle hair, hair loss, and so on. So along with the functioning of our Agni, our digestive fire, and the nutrition of the dhatus, we also need to look at the Vata dosha, because the Vata dosha has an inverse relationship with the bone tissue, in that if Vata dosha is aggravated, and particularly over a long period of time, it can lead to the depletion of the bone tissue, of Ashti Dhatu, leading to weak bones, and therefore, again, hair being the byproduct of the bone tissue will be affected and can lead to dry and thinning hair. Now, another dosha we also need to look at is the Pitta dosha, because excess Pitta dosha could also be a factor in that aggravated Pitta dosha can cause excess heat in the body and on the scalp, and can result in inflammation of the hair follicles, causing hair fall and baldness. And in addition to looking at the functioning of our digestive fire and dosha imbalances, it's also important to look at the following. We need to look at the diet. Is the diet healthy, not full of ultra-processed foods? Is the diet appropriate for your constitution and for your current health needs? For example, if you have a current imbalance, are you eating aggravating foods that are causing a further doshic imbalance? And is your diet adequate for your energy needs? Also, we need to look at lifestyle factors like, of course, stress, sleep, exercise. Are you over-exercising? and specific hair-related factors like excessive use of chemicals on the hair or heat styling. And we also need to look at the seasonal impact because hair fall during late summer and autumn could be related to an increased accumulation of heat at the end of the hot season, which then can aggravate the pitta dosha and cause that heat in the scalp and the inflammation and so on. So we need to look at, is there excess heat in the body? And has it resulted at the end of the hot season? And if we don't cleanse at the end of the hot season, now it's gone into the vata season. And not only do you have aggravated pitta, but now that excess heat in the body is also aggravating vata and causing dryness. And also talking about seasons, we need to make sure we're eating seasonally because that's important to help keep the doshas in balance. We know Mother Nature provides us with produce every season to help keep us in balance and prevent any aggravation of the doshas. And we also need to look at hormonal and metabolic influences. Is the hair loss or hair thinning related to a life stage or an underlying health issue? It could be a life stage like perimenopause or postpartum, hormonal fluctuations, thyroid imbalances, age-related hair thinning, chronic illnesses, autoimmune-related hair loss like alopecia. So as you can see, we really need to get a holistic view of what's going on in the body. And without knowing your current health status, Courtney, I can't tailor the information to you, obviously, because I need to get a holistic picture of what's going on in your life. But I can give some general tips today. The first one being calcium and mineral-rich foods, which are very important for our bone and hair health. And foods that are very high in calcium, particularly, would be sesame seeds. And therefore, tahini, which is sesame seed paste, is really good to increase calcium naturally in your body. But we do have to take into consideration the qualities of sesame seeds, which are heating and oily. And so if there's a pitta imbalance, this would not be a good food for somebody with a pitta aggravation. But other good sources of calcium naturally in the diet will be leafy green vegetables, nuts, dairy, tofu, and calcium fortified foods as well. And as I mentioned earlier, stress could be a factor here. So setting yourself up with a routine of good sleep and managing stress is really important. I talk about sleep in detail in episode 168, which is lots of info on the science of sleep and sleep hygiene. And also in bringing in mindfulness practices like yoga, meditation, and pranayama, the breath practices to help manage stress. And time in nature, we know, is a great healer and really calms the nervous system. So that's really important to look at as well. So that's all internally, right? Our food, our stress management, and our lifestyle. But externally, you could look at massaging the scalp with oil before you wash your hair and allowing that oil to sit on the scalp for around 15 minutes. Now, you could use the same oil that was recommended to you for your Abhyanga oil massage, or there's also another oil specific for the hair. In fact, it's translated to king of the hair, and that's Brinraj oil. And it's a classic Ayurvedic hair tonic. And this oil has an affinity for inflammatory conditions of the head. So great if there's pitta aggravations of the scalp or hair follicles. And it's an anti-inflammatory, which prevents inflammation of the hair follicles that can lead to hair fall and baldness. It rejuvenates the pitta dosha and asthi dhatu, the bone tissue. And I actually have links in the show notes to Ayurvedic providers where you can find this oil. And don't forget to use the Elements discount code. So I'll put all those details in the show notes. We also need to look, obviously, using natural shampoos and avoiding any products with chemicals. And I also talked about many Ayurvedic herbs which are beneficial for the hair. In episode 316, I talked about Amalaki, Brinraj, again, Bhivataki, Brahmi, and Jatamamsi. So check out episode 316 to learn more about those Ayurvedic herbs. So Courtney, I hope that information was helpful. And if you want a tailored approach for you, just please reach out so I can take a look at your holistic health and put a strategy together for your diet, your lifestyle to help support your body and mind, and of course, your scalp and hair. But thanks again for a great question. Now, another topic that was requested to cover on the podcast was about the Gunas, or the qualities. So let's take a deep dive into the Gunas. So in Ayurveda, there are 20 Gunas or qualities, also known as 10 pairs of opposites. And these are fundamental principles used in Ayurvedic healing to restore balance. These qualities help us to understand the nature of everything, our body, mind, food, environment, even our emotions. Ayurveda views everything in the world through these qualities or gunas. The core healing principle in Ayurveda is like increases like and opposites pacify and bring balance. So let's take a look at the 10 pairs of opposites. First of all, I'll list them out and then I'm going to talk about them in detail. So the 10 pairs of opposites are: number 1, heavy versus light. Number 2, dull versus sharp. Number 3, hot versus cold. 4, oily versus dry. 5, smooth versus rough. 6, dense versus liquid. 7, soft versus hard. 8, static versus mobile. 9, gross versus subtle. And finally, 10, cloudy versus clear. Okay, starting with heavy versus light. The heavy quality increases the tissues of the body and increases growth as a result and creates stability in the body. For example, if we take dairy, dairy is considered to contain the heavy quality, and it can be challenging for the body to digest. Dairy increases the kapha dosha because kapha dosha contains the heavy quality. And so in this case, it's like increases like. We know that dairy increases the kapha dosha. With excess heavy quality in the body, the kapha dosha will build excess tissues, which increases heaviness and as a result can increase the weight. Another example of the heavy quality is in the air. If you think of humidity, and this is when the air is heavy with moisture and it has a heavy quality. And high humidity can contribute to us feeling tired, lethargic, and feeling heavy in the body. So now let's look at the opposite quality, which is light. The light quality reduces weight and increases energy and alertness. For example, in springtime, nature gives us leafy greens, which are light, to help lighten the body. And it has the opposite qualities to the springtime when there's lots of moisture in the air, maybe the snow is melting or there's lots of rain, the ground is saturated. That's considered kapha season. So nature gives us these light, leafy green vegetables to help counter the heavy, saturated kapha qualities of the kapha season. So here we have a case of opposites pacifying, the light leafy greens versus heavy kapha season. Another way to look at the light quality is in dry air. We talked about heavy, high humidity. And if the air is dry with a lack of humidity, well, this can reduce then the water in our body. So that's heavy versus light. Let's move on to dull versus sharp. So the dull quality creates a slowing down of things in the body. It creates dullness in the body. It's relaxing. It's neutralizing quality, which brings calmness. And if we think about a dull quality in food, it will be something like rich and fatty, like a cheese. And if we think about in our lifestyle, a dull quality, we could look at it as something like meditation would have a dulling quality because it helps to dull the senses by encouraging us to go inwards and to be still. So it's got a calming, dulling effect on the body. The opposite quality of sharp is transforming. It aids digestion. It cleanses the body. It brings clarity. And if we think of this in our diet, pungent spices aid digestion. They help us to break down the food. They stimulate our agni, our digestive fire, helping us to really digest the food well. And in our lifestyle, we think of the sharp quality in like the breath of fire, pranayama, which is a very stimulating breath. As a result, when we practice that, it stimulates the mind and helps to clear any brain fog or dullness in the mind. So that's dull versus sharp. Now let's move on to cold versus hot. This is quite obvious. Cold quality creates cooling action in the body and even in the mind, slows down digestion by cooling the digestive fire, promotes constriction and contraction in the body. So if we think of the cooling effect of mint on the body, which helps to alleviate excess heat, or in our lifestyle, we could think of a cold water plunge, which can cause vasoconstriction, which is blood vessel constriction, and can lead to skeletal muscle contraction. So that's the effect of that cooling quality. In pranayama, we do the shitali cooling breath, which is the one where you stick out your tongue and roll in the sides, and we breathe in the cool air across our tongue. We use this when there's a lot of heated pitta emotions. So now let's look at the opposite, which is hot. And the hot quality stimulates digestion and circulation and obviously the heat in the body, and helps to open up the channels of the body, promoting sweating and cleansing. If you think of a sauna, which promotes vasodilation, causing the blood vessels to widen, increasing blood flow, improving circulation. In our diet, we think of the warming effect of a ginger tea. That ginger has a warming quality. It heats the body and it also stimulates and aids digestion as a result. Moving on now to the next pair of opposites, which is oily and dry. So oily quality creates lubrication, moisture, and relaxation. For example, in the diet, that would be things like good fats, ghee, olive oil. They help to provide lubrication for the tissues. And self-care practice like abhyanga, the oil massage, which helps to lubricate the tissues. And as a result, it brings that relaxation to the body and mind. The opposite of oily being dry, which creates dryness in the tissues and restricts flow in the body. So if we look at dry foods in the diet, say, for example, crackers, they have no moisture. So if you're eating a cracker, it requires moisture from the body in order for the body to digest it. The digestive process relies on saliva and other fluids to break down the food into smaller molecules. Now, if your body is already dehydrated and you're eating a lot of dry food in the diet, or maybe you're living in a dry climate, this is a case of like increasing like. And so that can lead to dry mouth and excessive thirst and dry skin and possibly constipation. So this is where we would need to bring in more of that oiliness and lubrication to combat that dryness in the body. The next pair of opposites is smooth versus rough. So the smooth quality improves moisture, it improves lubrication and therefore improves flow in the body and flexibility. And again, adding good fats like ghee or olive oil to the food helps with the lubrication of the tissues, the lubrication of the waste out of the body, preventing constipation. And the oiliness in the food also helps to improve the moisture in the body. The opposite quality of rough, well, rough quality reduces congestion and blockages. So if we think of the roughage or fiber in the form of veggies and legumes, these help to move waste along the intestinal tract. Now, if, for example, you have a high vata constitution or a vata aggravation, there's a lot of dryness in the body, you're eating a lot of dry foods, you're in that dry climate, and you're eating a lot of raw vegetables will have that rough quality, and your body's already dry. Well, now this could be a problem and can result in dry, hard bowel movements or constipation. And so we would need to bring in more of that opposite smooth quality of lubrication, adding the good fats to the diet to help with that movement of bowel movements out of the body. So just a simple example of how we would bring in the opposite quality if the rough quality was aggravated further in the form of dry bowel movements and constipation. Moving on to dense versus liquid. The dense quality has a lack of liquid, right? It's the opposite of liquid, creates more density, highly concentrated, brings cohesiveness, strength, and solidity. So if we think in the diet of dense proteins like meat, which are very grounding for the body, in particular for the vata dosha, We think of the Vata dosha, it's made up of the air and space elements. It's very light by nature, can become easily ungrounded, and so lacking density. Therefore, bringing in something like meat into the diet of a person who has aggravated Vata can be very helpful because it's providing that density that Vata needs. The opposite quality of dense would be liquid. So liquid obviously creates less density, less concentration, more dilution, liquefies and dissolves and transports nutrients and wastes in the body. So an example here would be easy digestible liquid foods like a soup, which would help to hydrate the body, aids elimination as well, because with a soup, you're increasing the liquid quality in the body, and this would aid elimination in the form of sweat, feces, and urine. Next is soft versus hard. So the soft quality obviously creates softness in the body along with subtleness and flexibility. And in the diet, we would think of soft, mushy texture cooked foods like a sweet potato or oatmeal, which could be considered comfort foods. And just say in lifestyle, we consider a soft quality in a soft chair or maybe a really soft mattress that you sleep on, which helps to promote relaxation and sleep. Now, if we look at the opposite quality of hard, which creates alertness and stiffness, going back to our furniture, if you think of a hard office chair versus a soft, slouchy couch, the hard chair really doesn't encourage relaxation and it more so promotes alertness. Another example of hard would be if somebody had problems digesting nuts, for example, like almonds. They're hard to digest, hard for somebody maybe with a Agni that's not functioning well to digest. So then we would bring in the opposite quality of soft. How do we do that? We would soak those almonds maybe overnight, and this would bring in more of that soft quality, making them easier to digest. Okay, moving on to static versus mobile. Static quality brings strength. It also is a slowing down in the body, and it's very supportive. And if we think here of heavy grains like white rice can help to bind the stool and help reduce diarrhea. So white rice is known for binding the stool and slowing things down. And then another way static quality shows up in our lifestyle would be in meditation, which helps us to sit still and calm our mind, again, slowing things down in the body. So the opposite is mobile. Mobile quality obviously promotes moving, stimulating action, mobility in the body, energizing the body. And we can think of this in the form of a purgative or laxative, which can induce bowel movements. We can also think of it in our environment. The mobile quality would show up on a windy day, or if we're doing excess movement, we're moving a lot, maybe running a lot for exercise, or even traveling a lot. All this can increase the mobile quality. Now, Vata has the mobile quality naturally in its makeup. And so if a person with a high Vata constitution is running a lot, is traveling a lot, is in high winds, that can increase the mobile quality in the Vata dosha and can activate the nervous system and overstimulate the mind. And in this case, we would want to bring in the opposite quality of static to calm things down in the form of meditation to calm the nervous system, for example. And we could also bring the static quality in the diet, as I just mentioned, that rice helps to slow things down in the body, but particularly the rice would help to ground the body because it's static and it's considered heavy. Okay, next we have gross versus subtle. So the gross quality creates bulkiness in the body, and this would be in the form of heavy foods. For example, ice cream and cheese can increase the kapha dosha and can increase the tissues in our body, increase weight in the body, building that bulkiness. Whereas the opposite, the subtle quality can pass through the minute channels of the body. And if we think of pranayama, where the small molecules like oxygen and carbon dioxide pass through the minute channels in the body, a pranayama like nadi shodhana or alternate nostril breathing activates the energy in the nadis, which are the subtle energy channels of the body. So that's why when we are doing the alternate nostril breathing and closing one nostril versus the other, we're stimulating that subtle energy in the body and bringing balance to the body. And finally, we have cloudy versus clear. So the cloudy quality can create a covering, a cloudiness, a sliminess, a coating in the body. And I think of the vegetable okra when I think of cloudy, because okra has a slimy quality to it. Or we can also think of a banana. A banana can increase mucus production in the body. And sometimes for a person with a high kapha dosha, if they eat banana, they will have more mucus in the body after eating a banana, particularly if their kapha dosha is aggravated. And the opposite quality is clear. So clear helps to promote flow in the body. By removing blockages, it brings clarity to thoughts, more awareness, more intuition and consciousness. And we think of the clear quality, like if we're cleansing the body, doing a neti pot for nasal cleansing, or spring cleaning your home, and also just detoxing the body and doing a cleanse, which can bring more of that awareness and intuition and consciousness. And we clear out any of that fogginess in the body, any accumulation of doshas, any accumulation of ama or toxins in the body, clear out any cloudiness, any stagnation in the body, and it can bring in that clarity of that thought and awareness. So there are the 10 pairs of opposites. I hope that helped explain them a little further. And I'd love for you to think about which qualities dominate your life right now, and observe which gunas are dominant in your food, in your routine, in your emotions, in your environment. What season are you in? And what opposite qualities might you bring in to help balance your body and mind? And it's great to experiment with adding the opposite guna and just see how it feels, physically, mentally, and emotionally. Understanding the 20 gunas helps us to make simple, intuitive choices every day in our diet, lifestyle, self-care, mindfulness, exercise, and so on. And it helps to keep our doshas, body and mind in balance, preventing disease. So this is the foundational principle of healing in Ayurveda. Once you have an understanding of this, you really can become your own healer. And if you want to study the 20 gunas further, I go through them in detail in my Daily Habits for Holistic Health program. This is an ideal program if you like to study by yourself. It's a 28-day self-paced program with the objective to help you live in tune with the circadian rhythm and educates you on how to become your own healer by understanding these principles of opposites in detail. So if you're looking for more information, you really want to understand it further, then check out that Daily Habits for Holistic Health program. If you like a tailored approach and you want to take the guesswork out of it, well, then check out my online services. I'd be more than happy to support you. I have online consultations, which are focused on healing, education, and empowerment. My goal is not only to bring you into balance, but also to educate you on how to take care of your body and mind. I also have my Digestive Reset Cleanse that comes with a 90-minute online consultation so that I can tailor the holistic cleanse program to you and your lifestyle. The next group cleanse isn't until September, October, but you can do a private cleanse at any time. And then I put all my services together in my Reset, Restore, Renew program. I do have a comparison chart on my website where you can check out all my services and see what's best for you. And if you want to talk to me before booking, then just take advantage of my free 15-minute online services inquiry call. We can hop online and I can answer all of your questions. So that's it for this Q&A episode. I hope this was informative. If you think that others would benefit from this information, please share this episode with them. And if you haven't already subscribed or followed the podcast, please do so. And the new episodes will automatically download for you every week. Please come join me on social media. You can find me on Instagram. My new Instagram page is the Elements of Ayurveda podcast. And on Facebook, it's under Elements Healing and Wellbeing. Thank you so much for tuning in. And until next time, take good care of yourself, be well, and bye for now. Slán go fóill.